So really like to introduce our host for today and trainer, Miss Briana Moore. Thank you, Miss Moore, for joining us today.
Good morning, everybody. Let's see here, speaker view. Okay, good. And close the chat. How do I do that? Close. Okay, good. So good morning, everybody. I'm so glad to see you here today. My name is Miss B, and I am going to go ahead and begin to share my screen. So welcome to this learning event on post-traumatic growth. I am happy to be here with you. You all can see everything right there in the screen. Okay, a butterfly in the title shot, right? Yeah. I believe that our time here together will be helpful to those you serve, as well as your other colleagues, as well as family members and friends, as we explore how to use trauma and pain to change our lives for the better. Here's an orienting question for you that I'd like you to think about. What called you to do this work in your at this point in your life? What called you to do this work at this point in your life? And how do you keep going? What are some of the tools that you use to keep going, even when you feel like some days it's just too much? I want you to drop your answer in the chat. And throughout our work together today, we'll go back to the chat. We'll also give time for you to have comments and thoughts. So as I go along, and if I say something that causes you to feel some kind of way or stimulate you in some way, just jot that down and we'll come back to get your notes. To get your ideas. It's on 28 slides in one 15-minute video. So there's lots of time for us to have discussion and discourse around this topic. So I also invite you to notice the butterfly here. The butterfly is a wonderful symbol for post-traumatic growth, and it happens to be one of the many things that I collect. A caterpillar gives up its life for the butterfly. This is called metamorphosis. And earlier in my recovery, when I had 5 years clean, I thought that the butterfly went on its way and the caterpillar went on its way. And then somebody told me, no, the caterpillar dies. And so that meant that I would have to give up my old way of life to have this new way of life. Well, needless to say, I was very, very, very upset about that. I just didn't understand it. And I really didn't learn anything about it until much later in life. And then I learned that with the caterpillar giving up its life, it goes into a cocoon. And that the process of changing from a caterpillar to a butterfly for the caterpillar is very, very painful. But then out comes this beautiful transition of an insect that has so many different kinds of inclinations, different colors and all that. So I'll come back to that connection to post-traumatic growth a little later in the presentation. And like I said, you're invited to ask questions. You can raise your hand or you could drop your thoughts and questions in the chat. And both Catherine and Leah are monitoring that and they'll stop and say, hey, we need some clarification, okay? So I hope that all makes sense. So a little bit about me. My business is Be Delight. AH is BE is B, D-E, and light. It's I am the light. It's the vernacular of I am the light. Is I, B is am, D is the, and light. So my social location is in Rio Vista, California. And I am the grandmother of 2 boys, and I've been retired 4 years. Man, how time flies. From the city and county of San Francisco, where I work with people and families who are unhoused. My last 2 years of the project, I spent managing a grant in collaboration with the Bay Area mental health agencies and the San Francisco Department of Public Health. In my position as a project director for trauma-informed systems, we went around and trained all service providers in 9 Bay Area counties. So my goal today is to give you some information that you may have heard before. But I also want to give you some tools to help you recognize the strengths developed in the face of post-traumatic growth. So before we begin, I always want to give honor to those who came to these lands before us, those indigenous tribes who were brought here as enslaved captives, those who immigrated here to seek peace and grace, and however many other people and groups of people came to this country. I thank you for your standing, your dying, and your suffering so we can all be present here today to do the work necessary to heal both ourselves and those that we work with in the community. I also want to acknowledge the injuries that have been caused over the past few years, Asian hate that's escalated over the past few years, as well as the senseless killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and so many others. I just wanted to name that rupture, and I'm holding the hope for the repair and reparation for our communities. One of my favorite South African terms seems very, very appropriate. It's Ubuntu, U-B-U-N-T-U, Ubuntu. I am because we are. It's our we-ness that makes our collective community a priority. So again, it's important for you to notice your body and how you feel. Some things that I might say might cause you to feel some kind of way. And again, if you start to notice your heartbeat faster, or your palms becoming sweaty, or you're disassociating by zoning in and out, give yourself permission to take a few deep cleansing breaths. We use 4-1-5, 4 breaths inward, hold through your nose for 1 count, and then exhale through your mouth to the count of 5. So this exhale is deep from your diaphragm. It's not like blowing out smoke, but rather like you just returned from a full day of shopping, Christmas Eve, with a 4-year-old who wanted everything they saw. So the inhale is longer than your exhale is longer than your inhale. And if you can't get to 5, just do your best. Practice makes improvement. So you inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold it, and exhale. Like that. Okay. So you want to just practice that for yourself so that you are centered and that your body is present. And this breathing technique, will go into it several times throughout the workshop if I kind of notice that people are having a little difficulty. So what is post-traumatic growth? You've probably heard the term post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, a term that was coined in relation to the military or some other horrific life-threatening events. Our focus today, however, will be on the other side of PTSD. The short answer is that post-traumatic growth is the positive effect that a traumatic experience can have on you. Although you've paid a huge price for that positive growth, at least you could get some good things out of that experience, that traumatic experience that you had. In fact, it's always better to look for a silver lining in all the testing times that are put in. It builds hope and is the ray of light that helps you find a way out of that dark, scary dungeon. Post-traumatic growth is the ray of light for people who have hit rock bottom in their ocean of traumatic experience. I always say that the light at the end of the tunnel is not necessarily a train. So, and I know that when I'm going through my dark times, it always comes at times like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, right? Not at a time when I could pick up the phone and call somebody and say, oh, I'm having a feeling about this, or a thought about that about myself. It comes at inopportune times. So that's when these tools that I'm going to present to you today, you'll be able to do these tools and use these tools regardless of what time of the day it is. So let's take a look at our work together today. And these are the goals. These are our goals for today. So I'll give you a few reminders, first of all, about trauma, and share a different view of covert and overt trauma. You may not be familiar with that unless you did the other workshop that we presented, I think on the 6th of September, that really looked at trauma in a very, very deep way. Then we will explore the similarities and differences of PTG, or post-traumatic growth, and resilience. We often speak of post-traumatic growth and emotional resilience in the same line, but in psychology, they are two entirely independent constructs. Resilience is a personal quality to bounce back from stress and sorrow. A personal quality to bounce back from stress and sorrow. Some of us are inherently more resilient than others. I think I'm more resilient now at 71 years old than I was at 20, or maybe not. Whereas PTG is an enlightened mental state that comes after one is exposed to trauma. This is where we bounce forward from being that caterpillar to the butterfly, transformed and renewed. The next goal is life crisis, viewed through both personal factors and external factors. And those challenges we never thought we'd be able to make it through, like over the past 3 years: masks, distancing, social isolation, death, illness, January 6th, just to name a few. We have been through some difficult things, folks. And although we may be a little wobbly sometimes, we are still standing. Post-traumatic growth is a process of reconstruction. It's also the outcome of this reconstruction. It's the experience of positive changes for oneself as a result of the struggle of traumatic events. We will look at what surprised you, about how you managed to deal with this endemic. So I want you to take a moment. What surprised you about how you were able to deal with the last 3 years? What surprised you about how you were able to deal with the last 3 years? What surprised me mostly was my resilience. I live alone. And some of those days got really dark and really scary. And so I organized different groups, and I said to my circle of friends, look, I'm here by myself. I need to be able to connect with people. And so we organized a Friday night Zoom call or a Sunday morning Bible study, just something that I could do so I could connect with other people. The thing that I made a mistake in, 2 things I made a mistake in, the worst mistakes of my whole life. I did not invest in Zoom, and I did not invest in Netflix. I would be rich now. I would be rich. So would many of you, unless you did that, investing. And so then we will take a look at the 5 domains of post-traumatic growth. At its most basic form, PTG is marked by 5 indicators: appreciation, relationships, new possibilities and opportunities, personal strength, and spiritual enhancement. So we're going to take a look at each of those and see how you relate to those with a post-traumatic growth inventory and see where you score with that. How well are you doing? How are you healing? How are you bouncing forward? And then finally, you'll have an opportunity to take a look at some small healing steps to PTG. So I'm going to come back on and ask, are there any questions about where we're going before we move into trauma? Anybody? Raise your hand. Everybody good? Is this making sense so far? I'm opening it up so I can see the names or something. Okay, cool, cool. Talk back to me now. Talk back to me. That helps a lot. All right. So you remember, you've probably seen this example. Let me go back. So trauma is an event, the experience, and the effect. So the event is an actual or extreme threat of harm, where the experience is fight, flight, or freeze. And you might remember, if you were here last time, I also added fawn to that, which is how you just act as if everything is okay. So fight, you get in there and you fight. Flight, you run. Freeze, you just stand still. You can't move. You find yourself disassociated and locked in. And fawn, it's just, you just go along to get along, right? Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And whichever one of these you choose, number one, it's an automatic response. You don't get to say, oh, I'm going to fight back. It's just your automatic nervous system just kicks in and it does one of these wherever it feels like it's most safe for you. And then you become helpless to escape. And all of this overwhelms the brain and body. I call it, you become disintegrated or dysregulated. I call it discombobulated. You don't know whether to stand up or sit down or go forward or go back. You're just in a state of real confusion. And it has lasting adverse effects. So what happens in fight, flight, or freeze is your body will secrete, your brain will secrete this chemical called cortisol to settle you and to calm you down. But too much cortisol has an effect on your internal systems, your kidneys and your liver, all of those systems. So if you're in a constant place where you're dealing with trauma day in and day out and listening to those traumatic stories day in and day out, eventually it will have an effect on your health. So it's really, really important that you do everything that you can to make sure you take care of yourself. Your self-care is your responsibility. It's important that you put yourself first where self-care is concerned. But just a little look at overt and covert trauma. So overt trauma events are fairly obvious, and they've happened in the past. Make this a little clearer. Okay. They've happened in the past and are running our lives today. These overt trauma episodes include ACEs, which is adverse childhood experiences, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and other events of psychological trauma. Psychological trauma is the unique person's experience of an event, a series of events, or a set of enduring conditions that interferes with our ability to integrate the emotional experience. That's a lot of words. Basically, what it means is that these conditions that we have normalized and they continue to happen to us over and over and over, they interfere with our ability to integrate the emotional experience. Like we shut off our emotions, right? We don't allow ourselves to feel. We don't allow ourselves to be because we have been taught that's not okay. Women don't do that. Women don't dress that way. Men are supposed to do this, right? Depending on what culture you were raised up in. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. And it becomes very, very overwhelming. So the areas such as news, social media events, a constant barrage of information is what causes psychological trauma. Some of you may or may not be old enough to remember Walter Cronkite, the news at 6 o'clock. He came on at 6 o'clock. He was off at 6:30. He gave you all the news, all the information you needed. And at 12 midnight, does anybody remember what happened to the TV at 12 midnight? It went off. And the Star Spangled Banner played. And that was everybody saying, okay, it's time for you to go to bed. It's midnight. Well, you don't have that now. You have a constant barrage of news and social media. When I was in North Carolina recently, my grandson was on Snapchat. I didn't know what Snapchat was. So I told him, I said, hook me up with Snapchat. He said, oh, no, Nana, I can't do that. I was like, why? What is it? Well, I want to know what it is. I'm smart. He says, no, Nana, some of the things on there are not appropriate for my grandmother. So what did I do? I went on myself, and now I can't figure out how to turn it off. So if anybody know how to turn off Snapchat, hook a sister up, because I don't want to be on that. Facebook, I'm not changing, because where can you talk to 2,000 people and tell them what's going on with you without contacting everybody individually? So those are my two social media enjoyments. Could be addiction, actually. So then also in adverse childhood experiences, we are looking at abuse, which is physical abuse, emotional abuse, and sexual abuse. We look at neglect, which is physical neglect and emotional neglect. We look at dysfunction, which is mental illness in the household, where the mother may have been treated, or the father even may have been treated violently. The divorce of parents, incarcerated relatives, substance abuse in the household and the family. So if you are not familiar with adverse childhood experiences, you can go online and look up a website called ACES Too High, ACESTOOHIGH. And it will give you the history of adverse childhood experiences, how it came about, give you an assessment on adverse childhood experience so that you could get a score to see where you are with that. But it also gives you a resilience assessment. And I think the resilience assessment is more important than your ACEs score. My score is 7, right? But my resilience score, how was I able to make it and to continue to grow with a score of 7, which 7 out of 10 is pretty high, right? But my resilience, how I changed the way that I look at things, how my ACEs score turned into post-traumatic growth. Okay. So then we move on to covert trauma. Covert trauma are episodes of trauma that are much less obvious events. And since they're not so obvious, no help is requested or offered. They can happen one time or repeated. Finally, just because they're not obvious doesn't mean it's not having an impact. So unlike overt trauma, covert trauma operates in a more concealed manner. It often presents an outward appearance that may seem non-threatening, loving, or even caring. However, beneath the surface, covert trauma or covert abuse is controlling, dogmatic, and leaves no room for the autonomy of others. Covert abuse is often characterized by what is withheld rather than what is overtly dished out, like affection or lack of empathy, withholding connection or silent treatment, stonewalling, or disregarding another person's perspective or even their feelings. Covert trauma involves underhanded and deceitful behaviors that the abuser employs to manipulate others without considering their inputs or needs. So covert trauma can be a partner, it could be a parent, it could be law enforcement, it could be any person or situation where there is authority. So, any questions about that? The difference between covert trauma and overt trauma? Anybody? Are people still there? I see I lost a few people. And no questions?
So
all right.
Nothing in the chat or
okay.
Hands up. We're good.
Okay, cool. So I think let's take a look at the chat. We got quite a bit in the chat before we go on to, let me finish trauma, and then before we go on to defining PTSD and resilience, we could take a look at the chat. Okay, Catherine? So what makes an event traumatic? They are sudden, unexpected, or unusual events. These events have an impact on the individual, the family, the community, and they are both known and unknown. Let's use the most recent traumatic event that's being experienced in the world today. I surely did not have to sit for hours with a mask on, or not be able to hug my son or my grandson, or watch a friend die, or not be able to have a repast. This is truly unusual, sad, and very scary. It's a very unsettling fact. In March 2020, just when the pandemic was hitting, I had a trip on my bucket list to go to Colombia. Everybody in my circle, including my son, says, you can't do that. You can't do that. I was like, this is not going to hurt me. I looked in Colombia and there are no reported keyword incidents of COVID there. So I'm going. So I was with a travel group. We got there, and the city was bustling. Everything was popping. People were moving about and hanging and all of that. And so we went out the first day, and I learned how to do salsa. We ate some good food. We came back. The next day I was studying for a license, so I didn't go out. The third day we were supposed to go to a senior salsa show, right? We go out, everything is shut down. No traffic on the street. Quickly Google 400 cases reported in Colombia. We still want to be persistent and go on through, but we got to this place where at the senior salsa show, all of these people, these fans were whirling, the chairs were close together. I looked at my travel agent, she looked at me, she said, we need to get up out of here. Long story short, we hurried up, made travel arrangements, and I travel internationally a lot. Never in my life was I more happy to see that sign, welcome back to the United States of America. It seemed like as soon as we landed, They closed the door to Colombia, nobody out, nobody in. They closed the door to the United States, nobody out, nobody in. And I'm sure you heard of all those people that you might remember that were stuck on those cruise ships and all of that. So I really feel like I got really lucky there. But the thing that was really astounding to me, I came back, my son handed me a mask and had me put on gloves, and he didn't hug me. And really, I felt like, I felt very selfish, because it wasn't that he didn't want me to go. He was afraid of what could happen to me there. So needless to say, this depression kicked in on me. I stayed inside for a couple of weeks. And then the first time I go outside, I got to go to the grocery store. Well, at that time, you remember lining up to go into the grocery store? You remember going to the store, no toilet paper, no hand sanitizers, no paper towels. That was all very traumatizing. And not only was I experiencing it, the other people were experiencing it as well. So that's sudden, unusual, or expected. They usually involve physical harm or perceived as life-threatening. Most research has shown that the perceptions of life threats are powerful predictors of post-war mental health outcomes. Okay, so number 4. They are often confronted with questions of who's to blame for what happened. And it may be someone else and it may be themselves or even God or destiny, but they struggle with it. The question of who's responsible very often at certain stages of development can make people more vulnerable to the effects of trauma. And it appears that in talking about the military, we're talking about people who's often in their late teens and often 20s exposed to trauma, which is particularly important in vulnerable developmental period. And so and as they struggle with trauma in active duty service, we also know that ACEs may put people at risk for adult trauma. And then finally, certain stages of development may make a person a little bit more vulnerable. So now, before we move on to defining PTG, sorry, is there any questions? Catherine, you're gonna go to the chat.
No questions other than links, but we'll be sharing the links to the video and also information that's shared for today's presentation in the chat as well.
So no thoughts, no questions, no epiphanies or anything like that, right? So far, what we've covered. So now let's take a look at the definition of resilience. Resilience can also be defined as the capacity to adapt successfully in the presence of risk and adversity. It's a broad term that's multidimensional, and it includes the ability to confront and handle stressful life events, grow and thrive in the face of challenges and adversities. We call it bounce back, beat the odds, and recover from or adjust to misfortune or change, endure traumatic events, and maintain a healthy outcomes. Like when you get to the other side of that episode, what do you see? What do you experience? What do you recall? How do you move from being a victim to being resilient? So it's a broad term, but very loosely related term to post-traumatic growth. And you might remember the saying that what doesn't kill you will make you stronger. Post-traumatic growth is the experience of individuals who have become better. They develop a lens to see how they were before in contrast to who they are now. So post-traumatic growth is the recognition that however horrific our experience, that we as human beings have an incredible ability to adapt, survive, and integrate to grow stronger, and then turn around and use that experience to help others. This has caused many to change the way we teach about trauma. And if all we're doing is telling people about how their toxic stress is going to kill them, then we're only adding to the problem. If we can point to the very real evidence of resilience and post-traumatic growth in people's lives, and that in their community, we all become inspired in celebrating the strengths and moving forward with a renewed sense of purpose. So my PTG story is my mother made her transition in 2008. 9 months later, my baby brother also passed. I felt so alone and angry. It's something when everybody who you lived with as you grew up passed on and leaves you, well, left me feeling some kind of way. It's more than lonely. I just kept saying, why did you all leave me? This exact same episode happened in my childhood, in my teenage years. I ran with a group of girls, and one day they had all died violent, horrific deaths. Not related deaths, but they were all just gone. This was long before I had any understanding of the work that I do today with trauma and PTG. Some 50 years later, as I look back upon the times that I questioned God and said, why me? I do understand today clearly. Why me? Because there was more work for me to do with folks like each of you. It's a calling, it's a blessing. And just like you all come to this work, nobody wakes up in the middle of the night and say, oh, what can I do to go and help the most disenfranchised groups of people dealing with several decades of trauma and adverse childhood experiences? The work that you do, I think it's also a vocation and a calling. It's for special people to be able to sit and listen to the stories and give a hug and give a word of encouragement to a small child who you might be the only comforting force that's in their life. That's a calling. That's a blessing. So I love this picture where there's a plant growing in a light bulb. I always wonder how something like that could happen. But if you think about it as the art of resilience, we do know that trauma can have long-lasting and a broad impact on our lives, the way that may create a feeling of hopelessness. Yet when we focus on our strengths and clear steps, we can take towards wellness, and we are more likely to be resilient and recover. So resilience is the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, and significant sources of stress, like bouncing back. Resilience requires that we understand the reality of difficult situations and believe, that's the thing there, we believe that we can overcome them. That's having the faith that I'm going to be able to make it through this situation. It doesn't look like it right now, but I believe. If you watched my other video or the other presentation, one of my favorite sayings is, I have two actually, you might want to write these down. Number one is, what you think about, you bring about. What you think about, you bring about. And my second one is, it's already all right. So in the midst of trauma, in the midst of despair, in the midst of that deep darkness, you're telling yourself, it's already all right. I know that I have been through difficult situations, and some maybe even more difficult than this, and I made it through. What were those skills and tools and resources that I pulled on in order to be able to make it through that, right? Resilience requires that we understand the reality of difficult situations and believe that we can overcome them. It's a muscle. It's a muscle. It's a muscle. We're not born with it. And resilience, like trauma, can also come through ancestral lines and generations. I always tell people, my ancestors did not jump off the ship. So that same DNA that I have, that they had, I have. If your ancestors immigrated to this country, I don't know anything about immigration, but I do know that it's a difficult process. And it takes a lot of stick-to-itiveness, perseverance, and what? Determination. And what? Belief. I believe that I can make it to a place where my family will be safe. We create conditions where people can be resilient, not creating resilience in people. People can be resilient. So let's take a look at the comparisons, post-traumatic growth and resilience. Although resilience can help make the most of PTG, we should not equate one with the other. A resilient person may not undergo PTG after encountering stress. On the other hand, a person who has experienced PTG may not have been resilient before the trauma. It takes time and immense struggle to truly change after a trauma. When a less resilient person suddenly faces a setback, he may become baffled and overwhelmed by the stress. However, this state of confusion and the endless struggle may lead him towards post-traumatic growth. Therefore, it's too early to deduce a direct association between resilience and post-traumatic growth, while we cannot deny the pieces of evidence that show that PTG brings resilience. The existing research indicating their independence is still developing. So the similarities are they both count for emotional strength and wisdom. They are positive life forces. They both act as shields against future stress and worries. They both call for personal development, and they both enhance awareness and perception. The difference is post-traumatic growth comes in different ways, sometimes as selfless to help others, or occasionally as genuine understanding and acceptance. Here are some examples of how post-traumatic growth can look in real life. An ideal illustration of post-traumatic growth is parents who have lost their child to cancer, who began raising money for different cancer organizations or charities. Survivors of recent attacks often become friendlier and more accepting of others, and much of their behavioral change is owed to the trauma they have faced. People who lose someone dear at a tender age are much more grateful and appreciative for what they have than others at their age. For example, a child who's lost his mother knows the value of motherly affection and would likely be more emotionally mature than other children their age. Of course, we know that can go the other way as well. Couples who remarry after losing their first spouse often develop a deeper and more transparent relationship. The earlier trauma they have faced in their past drives them to value the present and improve the quality of the interpersonal relationship. No matter how PTG shows up or which aspect of life they impact, the positive shift of energy that occurs in turning the negative into something good changes our identity as a whole. So my story around this, the change is when I was doing work in the single adult shelters, a place where I worked for 7 years, and I said I was only going to work for 3 years, so I, overstepped my own boundary. Listening to people's stories, interacting with the people in the shelters. I had 2,571 shelter beds. I interacted with the clients as well as the staff as a project manager. And one day I noticed that I had this severe pain in my shoulder, and I could no longer lift my arm above my head. And I had locks at the time. So if anybody knows about hairstyle, takes two hands to twist your locks and to groom your locks. The pain was so excruciating. I went to the doctor, and American has great pharmaceuticals, and they gave me a plethora of drugs that I started taking. And the more I took these drugs, the darker and smaller my world became. Nobody was calling to check on me. My house became very, very dark. And I turned inside on myself so much where I was thinking about committing suicide. And just as that thought became more and more prevalent, I saw my son tell my grandchildren Nana died. I saw my best friend tell all 8 of her grandchildren, sister baby, that's what they call me, sister baby died. I got up off the floor. I called Kaiser. I got the woman who is my doctor today, and she gave me CRT, an MRI. If anybody knows anything about Kaiser, you cannot get anything instant at Kaiser. So I do think it was divine intervention. She was able to let me know that I had a pinched nerve. Now, I'm a seasoned trauma specialist, a master's level social worker. And if I didn't know about, they call it conversion disorder, what about those people on the front lines that are listening to these stories all day, every day, and begin to have some sort of conversion disorder, but really don't know how to explain it or don't understand it? And so that's why I created these learning events. The first learning event I created through Alameda County First Five Alameda was self-care for the caregiver. And it gave steps and told stories and allowed people to talk about how their experience with listening to these stories had impacted their lives. And I was able to help them normalize what they were feeling and going through, to let them know that they were not feeling that all by themselves. So now let's just watch a short video on post-traumatic growth.
Sometimes things happen in life that we just can't control. Sometimes they are good things, but sometimes they are bad things. Failures, challenges, mistakes, they happen to the best of us. Today I want to introduce you to a completely new way of thinking about the bad things that happen to us. Specifically, this is a concept called post-traumatic growth. If you or someone you care about has gone through a difficult experience, then this is a video you have to watch. We hear a lot about the devastating effects of PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, but researchers Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun discovered an interesting phenomenon that can happen after someone experiences a trauma. Specifically, they found that people often report 3 ways in which their psychological functioning increases after a challenge. These are ways that our mind can grow after adversity. Post-traumatic growth, or PTG, refers to the positive mental shift experienced as a result of adversity. Tedeschi found that across a wide range of negative experiences, as many as 90% of survivors report at least one PTG benefit. PTG does not say that trauma is not destructive and challenging. It does not imply that victims should be able to simply bounce back to a normal life after adversity. Rather, PTG evidence shows us that over time, people can reap benefits from their challenges. Post-traumatic growth holds a very important idea. We don't bounce back from challenges, we bounce forward. There are some specific areas that researchers have found change after adversity. First, relationships. Some people describe that they come to value their friends and family more deeply after a trauma and don't take people for granted. There is also often an increased sense of compassion and longing for more intimate relationships. Second, self-esteem. While some might think that experiencing trauma might make you feel like a victim, many people feel that their challenge gave them a deeper inner wisdom, personal strength, and gratitude. Trauma can even help people be more accepting of their vulnerabilities and limitations. Third, meaning. Trauma can radically change and re-engineer people's life perspective. Oftentimes, after a challenge, individuals reevaluate their purpose and mission, becoming less materialistic and more able to live in the present. If you have experienced a trauma or major adversity and you want to begin to bounce forward, there are a few elements that are known to contribute to post-traumatic growth. First, don't diminish your response to the adversity itself. You have to go through a difficult emotional processing period before bouncing forward. You can think of this like grief. You have to be able to mourn and feel before moving on. Second, the researchers have found that we have to share and talk about the adversity to process it fully. They call this constructive self-disclosure. Bottling up any trauma often leads to a worsening of symptoms, so find a safe place to share the story and effects of your adversity. Lastly, look at how your personal strengths got you through this trauma. How did you handle it well, and what have you learned from this experience? Your number one personal strength is that nothing can stop you. Right now, you're watching this video with me. You are surviving. You're moving towards recovery. You don't bounce back, you bounce forward. I hope this message reaches you and anyone who needs it. If you know someone who might need to see this video, please send it their way with a hug from us. That's it today from the Science of People. Thanks for letting us join you on your journey.
All right. Gonna pause here before we go deeper into PTG and resilience. Anybody have any thoughts or any epiphanies that they would like to share? Catherine? Am I here by myself?
No, there's no questions. Just there was a request to make it a full screen, but I included the link to the video so people can watch it themselves.
Can we just speak out, or can you hear me?
Say again?
Yep.
Hi. Oh, hi. Yeah, I really appreciate the information on post-traumatic growth. I recently experienced something and it took several months to get through acknowledging what I had experienced and
Mm-hmm,
literally going through physical and emotional turmoil over it.
mm-hmm,
And it literally feels like you are in doom and gloom,
mm-hmm,
and it affects everything, family, work, especially it was related to work. And it was to a point where one day I fell apart and I had to leave work.
mm-hmm.
But what I experienced was difficult, and I didn't. I mean, in listening to your meeting, and I'm actually going to use some of this information in a meeting that I'm holding tomorrow because I think it's important for everybody to know that when you do go through something, you can bounce back. I mean, it's important to have resiliency, right? And you know you've experienced other things because I tell myself, if I could have gotten through all the stuff I went through earlier in life, I can get through this.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so this is like a clear example of resiliency and really post-traumatic growth, where I can actually say that because of the experience, I am making changes in the way I allow people to talk to me, the way they think they perceive me. My whole outlook on the situation is different. So thank you for this.
Great.
I think I've heard about it before, but not like in this way.
Right. Thank
So
you
it's
so
very
much for your,
clear.
I appreciate your story and your sharing too. It just really validates. I know it's true, and it just helps people to recognize I'm not by myself and I made it through that. I
Yes,
made it through. Okay,
absolutely. Thank
great.
you.
How do you say your first name? Ade?
Yeah, it's Ada.
Ada. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you, Miss
this
Ada.
my name is wrong because of the way when I first came to the United States, they write your name the way they want to write it.
Yeah, yeah.
They meaning government or whoever was the one that you passed through, and my dad was actually too scared to tell them that they spelled it wrong. So my name is Ada. It's actually with an I, Aga E. It's a Spanish name, and but
Okay,
I'm just sticking with what it is now. It is what it is.
perfect.
Thank
And I
you.
see you're welcome. And I see Pamela, you have your hand raised.
Yes. Hi. How are
Hi.
you? Can you
I'm
hear me?
fine. Yeah. Can you come on camera?
Yeah. You. Oh,
You don't,
you. Oh God, I look a
it's
mess.
okay.
But
No, it's okay. It's okay. No, I don't want to put you on Front Street. It's cool.
um, I don't know if I'm off. Oh, there I am. Oh Lord, I look
Okay.
crazy. But anyway, I wanted to add to what the young lady was saying because I had went through something at work as well. I was commuting at the time from Modesto to San Francisco, and
Mhm.
it became overwhelming, and I don't even know if I was awoke. I think I was just moving,
Mhm.
and in the end I ended up getting fired, and not because of my work, but this commute issue was a big deal, and I wasn't getting support at work.
Mhm.
But what I wanted to say about resilience is that when I got fired, I don't know, I felt relief almost, and
Uh-huh.
when I got my new job I just feel so blessed because it's flexible. I actually make more than I was making when I was commuting to San Francisco. I'm commuting to Oakland now because I still live in Modesto, but it's different because I can work from home. It was just more accommodating, and I was resilient in a way that I just held on to faith, and
Mhm.
that faith ended up working for me. So I just wanted to say that.
Well, thank you for that. And I think it's really important that we recognize that when we're being held by someone, an organization, an institution, our supervisors, if somebody's holding us while we walk through a difficult time, that really matters on our emotional well-being as well. And then one of the most important things that to recognize is like, yeah, I can't do this anymore, and give yourself permission to say, when your intuition, that's going to be my next learning event, how to tap into your intuition and really pay attention to those internal voices that we sometimes ignore. But I also commuted from Antioch to San Francisco with this conversion disorder in my arm. Traffic forever. It was traffic coming home and traffic going and traffic coming home. So it was really, really, really difficult. So thank you for sharing that, Miss Pamela. So now we're going to take a look at the Okay, let me shut this down a little bit here so I can see what I'm saying. So here's a simpler way to explain it to young adults. Some traumatic event or crisis will cause a feeling of stress, right? So you have a crisis, they get stressed out, and we learn to cope in two ways, either with our personal factors or our external factors. Our personal factors are optimism, which is hopefulness and confidence about the future or the successful outcome of something, right? Emotional regulation and radical self-acceptance, like these two stories that we just heard. This will lead to PTG. And our external factors are equally important. You see, they're not higher than one or lower than the other. They're equally important. So our personal factors is internal, and then our external factors, having family, friends, and relatives, community, teachers, and coaches, people that you can trust to tell your story to. This is what will lead to PTG. It's nothing in here that talks about feeling ashamed. It's nothing in here that talks about feeling vulnerable, right? Write this down. I didn't put it in the resources, but a woman that's one of the material that I really, really use and appreciate, her name is Brene, B-R-E-N-E Brown, Brene Brown. And she has a couple of TED Talks, one on vulnerability and another one on shame. 15 minutes, these 15-minute videos, total of 30 minutes will really change your life and your outlook. So the post-traumatic growth, and one of the things that's important is that even in the concrete, a rose can come. A rose can grow up through concrete. And those two stories, and also my stories, are evidence of that, right? So most psychologists and most lay people have heard of the term PTSD, and we are under the wrong impression that for most people who go through trauma and severe suffering, they eventually develop PTSD. We think the majority of people who go through traumatic, severely painful experience will end up with PTSD. That's not true. Actually, the research literature shows very clearly, and the empirical research literature also shows, that a huge majority of people who go through traumatic, severe, painful suffering experience do not develop PTSD, especially over a 1 or 2 year period. In fact, almost 70% of them do not develop that. Up to only 25% of children and 50% of people who have experienced a severe trauma develop PTSD. Pretty amazing, right? So up to 66% of people bounce back. They, in fact, show evidence of post-traumatic growth or benefit finding or stress-related growth or thriving. In other words, over time, with the adequate support and the skills of coping and so on, they actually become better people. And if you could look back and think about over the past 3 years, how are you stronger? How are you still standing? How did you make it through? What did you pull on within yourself to make it through these 3 difficult, harrowing, heartbreaking years? Some people didn't make it through, but many people made it through. Many, many more people died, and those families were affected. And this just wasn't a United States thing. This was a global pandemic. Global. And now it's an endemic, which means it won't end. It's like the flu. It's like other system illnesses that we get in our autoimmune system. It's here. It's here to stay. Okay. So let's go over some of these, the domains. A new sense of possibilities, new value in relationship, a greater appreciation in life, increased personal strength, and a deepened spiritual belief. So let's go through this a little bit more deeply. How do you grow? First, your personal strength. Your personal strength is all about how you choose to deal with all stress, the anxiety, and undirected energy that you have. Many people choose to use this tension and energy and engaging in risky behaviors like intoxication or drinking, smoking, drug use, and anything that you do in an addictive way, video, social media. Personal strength is built only when you make a wise choice of using your energy to do proactive activities like exercising, something as simple as walking, learning new things, or going on an adventure. My adventures include traveling, especially outside of the United States. I love Spain and I love Italy, and I'm blessed and fortunate to be able to have a travel agent that has a layaway plan. Not that I got a lot of money, but I do layaway. And when we went to Spain last year, one of the things that I noticed is that people sit outside, they come out at 4 o'clock or so, and then they stay really late out, but they're talking to one another. They're engaging in conversation with each other. People are interacting with one another. People speak to you. I don't see people who are unhoused, many people who are unhoused, but when I did see them over there, when the morning came, they got up, they put their little box mattresses away, and they went about their day. And there's no garbage on the street. Everybody participates in making sure that litter and trash are handled. So it's just a different mindset and a different way of being. That sometimes when I'm at home and I'm watching all of this on TV, my brain, I have toxic stress as a result of watching all of that on television. So new possibilities. When someone goes through trauma, their entire view of the world changes. Things that made it your priority list are no longer on it. You might find completely different things that attract you now. This is a sign that you should look for new possibilities in your life. What really makes you happy? Your happiness is your responsibilities, not some external force, your husband or your children. What makes you happy? What gives you joy? Post-traumatic growth helps you find meaningful possibilities in life other than the ones you had pre-trauma. The way you relate to others. For post-traumatic growth, social support system is very important. Not just your peers, but also people who have been through other traumatic experiences. Knowing that you are not alone can also be of great help. After trauma, you begin to see the world differently. And it's the best time to get to know people who add meaning to your life, changing your vibration. So you might have been with people who no longer vibe the same way as you do. And they don't understand your vibe and your flow. And it's okay that you elevate your vibration to people who understand where you are right now. I can say that over 70 years of life, that I have had different groups of people with some of the vibration for some of these people have changed. And then that allowed me to invite in people who had a higher vibration, who could stand with me and who can collaborate with me and who could work with me, and we can have fun together. I live in a senior development community, 55 and older, and it's a trilogy. And so I call this group of 6 women my Trajolian sisters. I'm always making up phrases and names and words. I love words, right? But I call them my Trajolian sisters. And what happens is that we connect on a level, on every single level. We play bid whist, which is a card game that's played in the Black community. And then I'm the one who loves to cook. So I'll cook something and then put it on our little group chat. Come and get some string beans with mushrooms and shrimps. Come and get some collard greens with oxtails. And I'll post a picture of it, and they can't resist because I am a very good cook. But I also love to share food because cooking and sharing is love to me. And so these sisters come together, and we come together and do things together, and the community is thriving. And I can honestly say that I would be in a very bad situation. My son moved a couple years ago to North Carolina, and he took my grandchildren with him. And I would be devastated. I would be absolutely devastated. The only thing I wanted in the whole wide world, other than having a child, was to be a grandmother. And he had the nerve to take my babies to a whole nother state. But I do get to visit them, and I wish they would FaceTime me more often. But I make the best of what I have with this community. So it's really important for you to have a community of people that are on your same vibration. Cherish the joys in life. Life is not about the happiness of a huge success, but about the tiny little joys of small achievements. This is one of the most important domains of post-traumatic growth. You begin to appreciate the small things in life, like a good hot meal, the sun rising, or the blossoming of your peace lily. I love plants now. That's one of the things that the pandemic gave me. My house is full of plants. And this is truly an old lady term. I hope that doesn't offend anybody, but I am an old lady. They all have names. I water them and I play music to them, and I give them affirmations, and they grow and thrive. And it makes me feel happy. And oh my God, if I lose a leaf, oh, it's like a child died. It's like, oh my God. I had one plant that I had for 2 years and it just died. I cried as if it was one of my grandchildren, I swear. Spiritual change during and after, many people tend to think about, why did this happen to me? Or how will I live now? But when you are on the path of post-traumatic growth, you see a spiritual change in your life. You have seen death up close and you know what it feels like to be in a life-threatening crisis. A spiritual change helps you to get past those feelings of morality. I'm not talking about religion. Spiritual, it could be religion for some people, but your spirit is what's the essence of you. The essence of you. I always say we are a human being having a spiritual experience. Any questions about any of that? Any stories about any of that? All right. So now we're going to take a look at reprogramming the mind and rockstar resilience. Rockstar resilience comes from this man who wrote the book. His name is Stephen Joseph. And I think he coined the phrase, what don't kill you will make you stronger. When you're taking stock, make sure that you are safe and can manage your post-traumatic stress to tolerable levels through exposure-related exercising, most of which we are quite familiar with, but often in the midst of trauma, it never crosses our mind. Exposure-related exercises are breath work, taking deep breaths, 415, meditation, where you close your mind and you just sit and think about. One meditation that works for me is that I just scan my whole body and notice if there's any feelings or any tension anywhere. And if I feel tension in my shoulder or my neck and back, I focus my energy on that. And I really, really try to release that by breathing into that particular spot. I hold all my stress and trauma in my neck and shoulders. Right? Some people hold it in their tummy. Some people have headaches. It could be a variety of different ways that you hold it. But if you meditate on that area, then and breathe into that area, it will have a tendency to release that. Another way to release that, write this down. There's a place in San Leandro that's called Psy Spa, Psyspa, Psy Spa. Leah, can you look that up and drop that in the chat for me? It's a great, wonderful place. They have 4 different jacuzzis and tubs. You have a hot tub, you have a cold tub, you have just lukewarm water. You get your massage, a variety of different massages. And then you have a quiet room and a meditation room, and you could stay there as long as you want. It's a wonderful way to make yourself happy for a day. I went there one Mother's Day, the first Mother's Day where my son, I sound like a victim here, but I ain't. Well, he abandoned me. I didn't have my child here for Mother's Day for the first time. So I took myself to Psy Spa. And that's what you get to do, is you get to do things that work for you. Another exposure-related exercise is tapping, emotional freedom tapping. You could drop that in the chat too, Leah, for me. And it's a process where you tap into all these meridians while saying a negative and then following it up with a positive affirmation. So even though I'm alone here without my grandchildren, I totally love and accept myself. And so there's a whole process that goes around tapping, and you tap into the meridians on your body. And it's kind of like acupuncture, but you feel enlivened, you feel alive, you feel more invigorated. And once you take a negative and follow it up with a positive, then that's really, really great. Another one is, of course, walking. And when you're walking, you want to notice where you are. Pay attention to your environment. You're listening to the sounds of the environment. We have a lot of wild turkeys out here, and now they've taken to coming into my yard and jumping on the fence. Did you know that turkeys fly? I didn't know that. I did not know till they came in, jumped on the fence, and the lady across from me had bird feeders. And I swear that they're like trying to die for the bird feeders. It was the most interesting thing. It was scary at first, but I was sitting out there and I was just paying attention to my environment. So you want to pay attention to your environment. You want to engage your 5 senses exercise to bring you back to the here and now. So you want to write this down. I'm going to go pretty slow. So first you want to engage, you close your eyes, take a deep breath, and then look around the room, open your eyes and look around the room and call out 5 things that you can touch and take a breath, 4, 1, 5. And then 4 things that you see and take a breath. 3 things that you can hear, take a breath. 2 things that you can smell, take a breath. And 1 thing that you can taste. You want to do this with your feet flat on the floor and really feeling the chair, allowing the chair to hold your body. So again, 5 things touch, 4 things that you see, 3 things that you hear, 2 things that you smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. And this is an excellent exposure-related exercise. And then finally, being around the elements. Fire or candles. Filling your home with beautiful candles, and the fragrance of candles that fire is all the type of aromatherapy that you could possibly use. I take a bath, light my room up with candles. I live by myself, so I can stay in the bathtub as long as I want. Write this down. Miss B's Spiritual Spa. So you want to have avocado oil, a cup of avocado oil, a cup of Epsom salt, and Dr. Teal's bubbles to suit yourself, right? I usually take a different types of soap and just put the soap right under where the water's coming out, and that makes the bubbles like multiply. And then I get in there as hot as I can stand it, and I make sure that I try to keep my mind focused on the bubbles, playing some jazz, some sort of soft music to just allow yourself to be in that water for that period of time. It's recommended that you do it for 30 to 45 minutes, letting the cold water out and putting some more hot water in. And just take this time to make yourself happy. I guarantee you, when you get out of that tub, if you don't feel better, then you need to get back in it. Okay. Another element is air, outside activities, walking around. Water is the bath, or even the ocean. Earth are plants. Water heals me. It makes me feel whole, perfect, and complete. Hope experiences, learning to be hopeful about the future, looking for inspirational stories of people who have overcome similar obstacles. The more experiences around you that reflect the idea of hope, it's easier for you to be hopeful. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to rewire itself in response to an experience. So the more experiences of hope a person has, then the more on your own brain will switch away from that, turning on those automatic stressful emotions like fight, flight, or freeze, or fawn, to something that the parasympathetic system, your parasympathetic system is designed to calm you down and to settle you, like I mentioned before with the cortisol secretion. And you're able to get a lot more better rest. And then the next one is valuing change, to develop an awareness with new priorities, to be more able to live in the present, focusing on the here and now, not the there and then. You feel stress and anxiety when you are focused on what happened before and what happened tomorrow, what's going to happen tomorrow. But if you focus on the here and now, and I call it keep your mind where your feet are, and it's not easy to do, trust me. Your mind is designed to travel and wander, but you have the skills and the ability to bring your mind back to the here and now. Identifying change. You want to be able to notice your own growth, which we will do after this part. Identifying and noticing change to post-traumatic growth. We have a psychological well-being test questionnaire that we'll take a look at in a moment. You'll be able to use this for yourself. It's one of the handouts that I will be providing for you so that you can really chart and see where you are in terms of your own post-traumatic growth. Reauthoring. So what's important here is storytelling. And as you can tell, I love to tell stories. I love to tell stories about my personal life. I don't have any secrets in my life. And if something that I went through might help somebody just a little bit, I'm going to share it all. You know, I think that that's what's really, really important, to allow other people, because we need to have that connectivity with one another. So we use expressive writing techniques to find new perspectives. I always write, and what I intend to write about, whatever comes out, is not what shows up on that paper. Right. So I encourage everybody to get a journal. You don't have to journal and write a gratitude list every single solitary day, but the more you do it, the more it will show up in your life. Write what you're grateful for. Write down what you're grateful for. Write down what you're grateful for. And then finally, concrete expression. Productive and purposeful work, moving from concerns about the meaning of life to the creation of a meaningful life, something that fulfills a bigger purpose in your life. Rockstar resilience is possible. Looking beyond your small little self to the big giant we. So here are some steps, some actual steps that you can use to healing. So first of all, you want to acknowledge your experiences and your feelings, just like the two people that talked about, you know, what they were experiencing going to work and the difficult experience that Aya had in her life. To share that, to acknowledge your feelings. The other day, I was feeling very depressed and I was feeling very lonely. And it was because I was watching, what I deduced it to is I was watching all these television shows that had couples and people being loving and cooking with one another and companionship. Now, most of the time, I'm great with my own company. But that particular day, I was thrown off my game. And then everybody I talked to, their man was coming over and they were cooking with them and they were going. So I started comparing my insides to their outsides. I got in my bed and covered up my head, and that lasted about 10 minutes. I said, you know what? Get up out the bed, girl. You got something better to do. So I went outside and I repotted all of my succulents that were like, I had this dirt. This is not maybe it is, but Costco dirt for $8, that's not very good, because all the plants that I put in that dirt, they died or they got sick or something. So I had to repot them in some great succulent soil. And now once I finished that, I felt so much better. I said, you could do something. So I could get into bed and cover up my head and feel sorry about myself, or I could get up and take some responsibility for how I'm doing, acknowledge my feelings, and told people that I was feeling some kind of way. And they were very supportive and caring. So acknowledge. The next step is learn to process your feelings. That means talk about them. Talk about them with someone else. Identify what the feeling is, not the thought, but the feeling. I feel. Not I think, I feel. I feel scared. I feel upset. I feel frustrated. I feel great. I feel grateful, right? Acknowledge the feeling and process your feelings with someone else. Talk about your trauma with your confidence. Now, that does not mean putting your business in the street, right? I don't have any secrets, so it doesn't bother me at all. But sometimes when you have a traumatic situation, you might not be able to talk about it with every single solitary person. But there has to be somebody in your life that has your back. And I call it has your back 150%. That's very, very important, to have somebody who's a confidant that you could trust. They trust you, you trust them. Having a social network, like I've spoken about a lot. And you could have different circles in your social network. So I have these women that I call ambassadors. And I have an ambassador of finance who helps me look at spending and saving and different types of opportunities like that. Like she told me about how with the percentage rates being up right now, it's a good time to save. So go on the internet and look for savings account that give you 4.5% APY. So you put 500, it doesn't matter. American Express has one, and you don't have to have an American Express card. You can put $500 in there And before you know it, you'll have $550. And the more you build your wealth and your resource, it feels so good. And you can start with a little amount, like $5 bills. Save $5 bills. Don't spend a $5 bill. If you break a 20 and you get 3 5s back, you got to hold those 5. I saved $900 by doing that. Then I started coveting everybody else's $5 bills. Hey, you want that? I got 5 ones. Right? So just little things that you could do to increase your social network and those circles, different circles of different people that you communicate with, that you party with, that you connect with. And sometimes your circles will come together and sometimes they'll be all separate. Like my travel circles, the people that I travel with don't know the people that live here with me in Trilogy. The people that I travel with, they hear stories of my family, but they don't know my family, except for my real one travel buddy, and she and I are very, very close, okay? So then community, building a sense of belongingness in your community or build your own community to thrive. One of the other things that we do, I started taking up diamond art. And it's this wonderful activity. But here we have a community where on Tuesdays, you can bring your craft and sit with other people who are knitting or doing diamond art or painting or whatever. And you're just sitting there 2 hours, right? Now, I'm retired, so I know that working people may not have the opportunity to do that. But what my work is and what my hope is that you encourage yourself and create these opportunities for your social networks and for your sense of community so you don't think that you're alone. And then finally, mental health. Seek help with mental health issues and concerns. I have the theory and belief that everybody needs a therapist. I'm a therapist, so of course I think that. So we have some extra information in the chat, Catherine. Or maybe she might have been gone.
It doesn't look like there's anything new in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a hands up. Anyone?
Somebody else has plans with names. Yay! Okay. And, oh, somebody does diamond art. Oh, wow. I love it. Okay. Thank you. Close that up. So this is a post-traumatic change questionnaire. And so how this works is you ask yourself the question out loud, and then you give yourself a score, right? And then you're going to add up your score. Add up your scores to all 18 statements. Scores over 54 indicate the presence of positive change. The maximum score is 90. The higher your score, the more positive score you have experienced. You may have changed more on some areas than others. So some of the areas, self-acceptance is statements 1, 7, and 13. Autonomy is statement 2, 8, and 14. Purpose and life statements. So all of these are all relevant and they're all put together in these different categories. So this is just for you to do, for you to recognize your post-traumatic growth. Okay, now we have a video that's 15 minutes, but I promise you, it will inspire and enlighten you. Everybody hear it okay?
What if I told you that you could overcome anything? But there's a circumstance or situation known to man that you cannot overcome. That you are indeed unbreakable. Would you believe me? And more importantly than me telling you, if you told yourself those things, would you believe you? I want to talk to you about a critical element of happiness, success, and overcoming obstacles. Resilience, and how it's built through some of the most painful moments. I'm not sure what the ideal route to a TED Talk is, but I'm guessing that my journey isn't it. I was born and raised in Oakland, California, coming of age in the 1980s, and it's nearly 20% unemployment rate for blacks, systemic housing segregation and discrimination, education inequities, high poverty and murder rates, and the dawn of the crack epidemic and its partner, the war on drugs, that made historical criminal justice inequities even worse. Against that backdrop, I also came of age with a mother who would become an addict and a father who, though his listed occupation on my birth certificate says custodian, he was also a pimp. Despite their flaws and doing the best that they could in a situation that exploited the worst of themselves, I knew that my parents loved me to pieces, and I loved them to pieces. My mom had custody of me as we moved and settled into Acorn housing projects in West Oakland. It's during a 3-year period between age 7 and 10 years old that some of the most traumatic yet vivid moments of my childhood would play out as my mother's disease of addiction took root. When I close my eyes, I see them all just as clearly today as they happened decades ago. Like the time I discovered my mother's boyfriend, eyes wide open, laying on the floor of a drug overdose. A discovery that initially paralyzed me in fear, much in the same way that his body lay motionless at my feet as he blankly stared at the ceiling. Like the day my mother sat me down on my bed to read me a handwritten letter that my dad had written and sent me in the mail. It would be the first time I'd ever heard the 5-syllable word incarcerated and learned what it meant. Like the day my grandmother, who took over raising me when we were evicted out of the projects due to my mother's addiction, received a call to inform me that my father, after being jumped in a prison fight, was brain dead. He would die later that night before I ever saw him again alive. Like the times I would later visit my own mother in jail, a hazy plexiglass window separating us physically and emotionally, while also serving to remind me of the fate that my father met in those very walls. I felt the pain, the sadness, the shame, the solitude, the adjectives that as a preteen meet the clinical definitions of depression. Yet when I opened my eyes, the worst of life couldn't take out the best of me, because I'm still standing here in front of you. Despite being truly disadvantaged, I stand here in front of you having overcome all those things and more. I would emerge as the first in my family to graduate college, earning undergraduate and master's business degrees, then on to a nearly 2-decade corporate career before starting my own venture. I've been from the projects to exploring a couple dozen countries across the world. From poverty to being the furthest from broke and broken that I've ever been. From tragedy to triumph, I have overcome, and even already, I have succeeded. Now, I could entertain and engross you in a fascinating story of how, but that's not nearly as important as a different question. Why? Why do I and others still succeed and flourish despite immense pain and trauma? Those people and myself, they aren't just strong or thick-skinned or good at compartmentalizing. What they are is resilient. You see, change, it's a constant in life. Nothing gives us immunity from it. Resilience is the capacity to adapt to negative change and recover from it as quickly as possible. Now, note that I said negative change, as you typically don't need any help in coping with positive change, right? You get the job that you interviewed for and it comes with a 30% pay increase. Or you find out class is canceled the day that you have an exam that you haven't prepared for. Oh, it's a bunch of A students in here, right? It's just me. Okay. Well, those are really good things. And so you don't need any help or strategies on how to cope with the good fortune. It's the negative things, the hurtful things, the bad things in life where our level of resilience matters. How we process, respond to, and act will have huge implications on where the story goes from there. Whether we succumb to it or we surmount it. But understand, to exercise resilience, some change in circumstances must have happened. Some change in circumstances must have happened. The idea is to understand your belief system. Your beliefs impact your feelings. Your feelings impact how you think about things, and your thoughts ultimately impact how you act and respond. I discovered this truth not through some bolt from the clouds, some specific aha moment, but from going through and escaping my own hell as a youngster. There were some excruciatingly painful, gut-wrenching days. Days where I didn't even know how I was going to move forward, and the only thing that I could cling to was an irrational hope. A belief that tomorrow would be better than today, sometimes without even really truly believing it myself. But there I was, trying to make each moment better than the next. Today's better than tomorrow, without sacrificing my future for today's pain. Even at a young age, and despite not knowing what scholars and researchers were already confirming, I was laying the foundation of resilience by using the most important resource available to me, my mind. I wish I could say that the bad luck truck stopped dropping boxes of trauma off at my doorstep when I was a kid, but life doesn't adhere to any delivery windows. Change comes whenever it comes, and for as long as we all live. After my childhood, I'd go on to experience the death of family and friends, job loss, financial issues, health crisis, all the things that life has a tendency to throw at us. To show you how much of a comedian God is, He gave me a breakup, heartbreak, and distraction to start this very week as I was preparing to talk to you about resilience. Like, really? Now? So what does trauma teach us about resilience? Sometimes we need to tell ourselves what to think when our mind starts telling us things that we don't need to hear. That you can and will overcome and succeed. And not just in spite of, but precisely because of. That with the proper perspective and a positive attitude, We have power. The life is easier when you're prepared. And just because you can't plan for everything, doesn't mean you can't be ready for something. That perspective sometimes requires partnership and perseverance. And understand, sometimes it gets hard and it's tough and it's painful. You get tired, you get weak. And when you don't know how to keep going, sometimes all the strength you need is the strength to ask others for help. That it's okay to acknowledge that I was a victim, but refuse to own being a victim. You get that subtle distinction, that difference between past and present tense? That gives us power. Power to change the way we think, power to change our circumstances, and ultimately power to overcome. Because of my faith, I've long been a believer that everything happens for a reason. Some reasons are immediately available to you, others take time to reveal themselves. As I was piecing together my talk, one of the central questions I kept coming back to was, who am I talking to? I ultimately realized that I was talking to the adolescent me, the college me, the professional me, even the future me with life adversity yet to be encountered. The varying versions of me is who I was telling, you are indeed unbreakable, that you can overcome anything. But if you happen to find a little something in your eavesdropping to help you through whatever adversity you face, then I was talking to the adolescent you, the college you, the corporate you, the professional you, the future you, too. And more than anything, I thank you for giving my trauma a purpose. Thank you.
So, just to let you know a little bit about him and where he is at, where he came from through all that. He's a resilience expert, an adjunct professor and motivational speaker. He has led programming at some of the premier universities and Fortune 500 companies. The name of his firm is called the Audacity Firm. And the reason why he named it the Audacity Firm is his grandmother would ask him, you have the audacity to come into my house. He didn't even know what it meant, but the word audacity stuck with him. And now he is a very, very successful person who took his adversity and turned it into post-traumatic growth. So I have up there and there in the chat some resources for you, both other YouTube videos and some reading materials and books on this topic. So I want to stop my share now and ask you to come off your mic and let me see if I can do this. Close view, gallery view. Okay, cool. And tell me one thing you heard today. And if somebody else said it, you have to think of something else. So we still have like 15 minutes. I want to see if it connected with you, if there's something that worked well or didn't work better, but you know, want to keep it kind of short. So I'm going to start with Nakia Harris. I said she took her mic off already. So come on with it.
Okay, so I wanted to really write down those quotes you said. You know, what you think about, you dream about. So just a little background right now, I work for City of Berkeley and I work in their Black Infant Health Program. So I'm working with mothers, you know, 0 to 5. And what I try to tell them so much is that, you know, it's gonna get better, you know, before it get worse. So that resonated with me so much. And also being from where, you know, Charles was from, like I want to share that video with my mothers, you know, because it resonates so much of what we have come, you know, and the audacity that just made me crack up because I think all grandmas, you got the audacity to be running in and out this house, coming to get some water.
Yeah, right.
So that, you know, definitely stuck with me, and it's already all right. You woke up, like I told my girls, you made it here, whether it's on time or not. You here to get this message, you here to get this word. So it's already all right. You already here. So oh, look, I'm talking my camera this way. So, but yeah, I just, you know, wanted to say that. And I thank you so much for, you know, just even, you know, making this space and creating this. I'm gonna be honest, you know, when we come into these Zoom meetings, you just like, oh, it's another Zoom meeting. But I was really in here taking notes. I printed out the spreadsheets and everything because I definitely want to take this back, not only to my clients, but to some of my colleagues. So I thank you, Ms. B, very, very much.
Well, that's the purpose of it, to be able to share it. Okay, Miss Ade.
Yeah, you know, I took the time. I'm actually working and stuff, but I thought this was going to be a very important conference or meeting with you. And thank you, because I'm going to use this in part of one of my meetings that I'm in tomorrow. I was going to talk about traumatic stress and what it meant, but I actually didn't. I mean, I didn't realize I had already gone through the growth in a way. But this really just set it up for me so that I feel more comfortable talking about it. Like I know that I've gone through growth, but I didn't. You phrased it just right, and you put it into these slides, and so I'm really glad I'm here. Thank you, because it just showed me the way for tomorrow's meeting. And it's actually a brave space. So yeah, so thank you. And I'm going to be logging off now, but thank you so much.
Okay, well, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah. Thank you for showing up. Melissa, do you want to say something? You're the next person. I don't know where she went. Okay, Tamara.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
One thing you heard, it locks with you.
It all resonated for me. I think that it's interesting when I think about resilience. I like the way you don't realize that you are growing from that. And so the terminology I'd never been exposed to. So I've learned so much from this. And I am going to share it with some of my staff, because we're family partners, and it's something that we can give to our families so that they can recognize that internal strength that they actually have, versus looking at it as a negative. Is actually a positive. There's a blessing through all of our turmoil in life, I believe. So thank you so much. It was an outstanding presentation.
Perfect. Thank you. Know that you're still standing. Okay, Julie, I see you came off camera.
Hi, yes. All of this resonated with me. I'm so thankful to be here and be part of this. I live in Northern California, and I'm 15 minutes away from the Camp Fire wild disaster where a town was completely decimated, and we had children and family that literally ran and escaped from their homes. So to know that was in 2018, and then we were hit with COVID, and then we've just been, that rock star resilience that you talk about, and how we're just hungry to learn more and more and grow and grow. And I feel like my staff and I have pivoted and shifted to provide early learning and care for not just the children in our programs, but the parents in our programs. And it just all resonated with me. And I thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Miss Angela Weiner, I see your face on your pretty, are you there?
I am at Kaiser. At Kaiser, getting ready to get an injection, but everything was wonderful. I will do the 415 breathing. Definitely. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing. Paulina Lopez.
Yes, yes. Hi. Yeah, it was amazing. Everything, so many takeaways. I will just say briefly, I think the concept of post-traumatic stress, I often find myself and many of my clients and friends and family being kind of stuck with that and not knowing that there's an other side to that, which is post-traumatic growth. So I'm thankful on many levels to have been a part of this in service today. And there's so much that I'll take away from it. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Miss Leah Ocha.
Hi. Thank you so much for this presentation. It was very informational. One thing that really stuck with me was when you were defining trauma and really going over how, trauma comes in different forms and that some can be more, what was the word he used?
Overt.
Trying to normalize it.
Yes,
yes. So once you said that, I was like, whoa, like it's very, very true. I realized it. I felt like a little light bulb turned on. So yeah, thank you so much. Lovely presentation.
Great, thank you. Allison, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I loved your presentation. Thank you so much. Yeah, I know I've always kind of felt like people who go through a lot of trauma end up being stronger, but I didn't have the framework that you're putting around it. I kind of thought of it as like when you heal, the scar ends up being stronger, but I'm gonna take this to the team that I'm on, and I feel like it's a really useful tool. One of the things I identified the most with, I've always identified as I'm more of a flight or freeze kind of person in terms of how I responded to my trauma and the way that I still kind of, that's my MO. And the word fawn actually was really good because that was definitely a coping strategy that I learned in life, and not a real healthy one. So I liked having that included in all the F words there. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you, Allison.
Yeah.
Okay. Theresin, you're down next on my list.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for that presentation. It was really nice. And all I can say is that there's a lot of takeaways and that it's very therapeutic for me. So thank you for that. I learned a lot.
Okay, great. Thank you. Irene. Lindy Miller.
Hi.
Hi.
The thing that stuck out to me the most was that difficulties are meant to rouse, not discourage. I've personally been going through a lot. I'm still in graduate school. I'm starting my practicum soon. And in like my positive psych class that we're taking, we're talking about just like accepting things and acknowledging them and being in your emotions. And it's hard when like these difficulties do come up and I do get really discouraged and I just don't want to do anything anymore. And that just really stuck with me. And then through the rest of the presentation, everything you were talking about, you just did great. And I'm really grateful that you guys shared this with us.
Well, great. I'm glad you were able to get some takeaways. Okay. Anybody want to say something that I didn't get to?
Someone's requesting for an email, Ms. B.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, you called on me, Margarita. Hi.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm also one of my coworkers in the Kia spoke a little earlier, but I'm also with the City of Berkeley's Public Health Department, and I'm always on the streets, working with clients and hearing stories. And I just wanted to ditto on just the storytelling and how important it is, and for us to share that with each other. And this was very therapeutic and very healing for myself, but also just I got a wealth of tips and knowledge, and just the way you stated everything, it just resonated with me so much. So I just want to give you like a million thank yous.
Oh, wonderful. Thank
you.
So
for being you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That makes me happy.
Thank you.
Sometimes, when your purpose in life is to stand up in front of people and run your mouth. I got that.
Thank you. You keep doing that. We got to keep doing that.
Yes. So, well, if everybody shared who wants to share, we still have a few more minutes, but thank you so much for your presence and your opportunities to allow me to just come and be my whole self with you. I appreciate you so much. I put my email address in the chat for those of you that are still here. And I just love that you guys love it. It always makes it worth it, because you're sitting there, you put it together. It's like, does this make sense? And then you just talking to a bunch of names, right? And so you don't really see people's faces. I'll be glad when we're able to go back and sit in a circle together. But this has been good too. So thank you, Catherine, for the opportunity to be of service.
Thank you, Ms. B. Thank you, Ms. B. We really appreciate this space that you've created, this community here. So we look forward to the next session. She is coming back for another session. So thank you all for joining us today. There will be the video that will be sent. We'll also be posting it on YouTube. Also keep an eye out on the post-eval survey. So we do appreciate your time and completing that, and hope to see you folks in our upcoming trainings. And have a nice day. Take care.